Welcome to your Real Estate Update with Darren Ahearn. Each week, we break down housing trends, mortgage updates, buyer and seller strategies, and the local changes shaping Frederick County and beyond. No fluff, just smart insight to help you make better decisions with your home and your money.
Hey folks, welcome back to your Real Estate Update. This is your weekly dose of real estate craziness and what is happening out there in the market all over the United States and of course right here in Frederick. Welcome to the Everything Frederick platform. We are right here in Studio 401 on North Market Street. So I am Darren Ahearn, your co-host from RE/MAX Results, bringing you over 23 years experience in the Maryland and PA and all over this country's region. And I also tonight we're going to have a lot of fun. I have one of my good friends, another real estate agent. He's not a competitor. He's a friend of mine, Mr. David Pard.
Well, Darren, thank you so much. It is quite an honor to be here this evening.
Well, thank you for taking some time here on a Monday night when you could be out selling homes, man, helping buyers and sellers, and you're hanging with your brother here.
Now, you know what? It's not every day you get a chance to hang out with the legends. So you take advantage of it when you can.
There you go. I appreciate it. There goes another 20. Yeah, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is our 7th podcast premiere program that we are hosting now for you guys. And the whole entire purpose of this is to arm and danger you with, whether you're a buyer, seller, whether you're renting or an investor, to be able to help you out, to keep you up on the pulse of the latest and greatest information, tips and tricks, so that you can make the best decisions for your life. So David and I are not financial advisors. We are not attorneys. We do not practice law. We may feel like it half the time since we're dealing with legal contracts all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we're here to be able to help you guys out. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you do the like, hit subscribe, do the button bell thing all there, and you'll be notified of every Monday night when we are on and other programs. You can always tune back in and re-see the programs and pass it on to family, friends, everybody, your cat, your dog, anybody that is thinking at all about real estate. We're here to be able to help and serve you. So we want to know what's on your mind. Make sure that you go ahead and put in your questions. If it's a question or so, put a QQQ so our producer can go ahead and see that immediately. And we will be more than willing to try to tackle that during this 1 hour or so segment and all that. So also want to take a minute and thank our proud, awesome sponsors. First and foremost, Terry Kernan and his big crew over at Presidential Bank Mortgage, who have been in the mortgage industry well over 30 years and does a great job. And they do just fantastic. Also, Community Title Network, Brian Paul and Mikey over there with their crew. They're very good with all that they do, professional as can be with all the title stuff for your needs. And of course, the one and only benchmark of Frederick County for insurance, Connie Phillips Insurance, who is awesome, her and Carl and their crew, Amy and everybody over there who does all my personal insurance, my cars, my kids. They insure every little thing I can try to insure in life and have done a great job. In fact, even recently switched me over to another company and saved me about $680 on my homeowner's insurance. So you got to love that. Thank you so much. So thank you guys again for tuning in. We're going to get right on into it right now. Dave, you are the man. How long have we known each other?
Well, it seems like forever, Darren, but it's probably been close to 10 years, I would say. You know, we did a few deals back in the day. You bailed me out of a tight jam on one that fell through and brought me a buyer that made a big difference for us. And ever since then, we've kind of been joined at the hip.
Yeah, man. Is that the one on Bassford Road out there?
That's the one on Bassford Road.
And you know, right now, I got that under contract. I know you probably didn't know that, but I got her under contract. And they just actually did home inspection today. So it all probably went really good. The people have updated a lot of stuff over there and everything. And so, yeah, we did that one together. And isn't it funny, the timing right now, the very time I'm selling that thing? Hey, why didn't you bring me a buyer for that place? What's up with you, man? I got you one. Why didn't you give me one?
Well, you know, with all that's going on with these data centers, heck, my clients might want to move back from Adamstown. Who knows? So, you know, I'll have to reach out to them and say, hey, you want to buy your house back?
That's right. If this thing falls through, I promise I'm going to let you know. So, all right, tell everybody about yourself. You've been in the business how long? What brokerage are you with? Tell us everything you want to tell us.
Well, I am currently with Sampson Properties, and
I'm
could not
sorry.
be.
No, I'm just kidding. We love you. You're right across the hall from us at Remax.
Yeah, so we're cellmate. I mean, on the same floor of the building, together over there on Presidential Court. I've been tied into real estate. I hate to even say this out loud, but close to 40 years. Was spending a great deal of time with new construction early in my career. I've been doing the residential and commercial real estate now for about 15 years, and based in the Maryland, Pennsylvania area, and it's just been a ride. It's been a wonderful opportunity. Obviously, we've had some different little economic blips there that have come in and passed through our industry and left a ripple or two. But it's all about helping people and seeing dreams come true and being a part of that journey with our clients.
Awesome. Many years. Yeah, my background, as you know, was in the new construction. My family, we had a concrete company, and we built half of Spring Ridge back in the late 80s when I was about 17 and 18 years old. I was walking up on those foundation walls and pouring concrete in them, and now behold, selling the places. It's crazy to think. If you had told me back then, I would have never believed it. In fact, I would have never believed I was going to live in Frederick County if you told me then. I was over on Kent Island and Annapolis and lived in the Ocean City and that whole side of the world of Maryland. So that's cool. So you've had a little bit of time in this sport, huh?
Well, yeah, we've had an opportunity to see a lot of changes. Obviously, Frederick County continues to grow. I am unfortunately old enough to remember when Warman's Mill was a big giant field with an old farmhouse before the very first house was ever built there. And the rest is history. As time and things develop and change, we have to adapt with it, and we certainly we get challenged for sure, especially changes in the industry, changes in technology, changes in the law. It's a never-ending adjustment, if you will. We pivot constantly.
Yeah, it's crazy. Most people, and we talk about that on here a little bit, some of the ins and outs and complexities and nuances about real estate and things that just trying to keep up with it is really unbelievable. We live in a whole new dawn and era, and we're going to talk about that. All righty. What about hobbies and fun stuff? Tell us, you married, you have kids. What do you like to do for fun outside of real estate, since this is the fun side of the island?
Oh, I enjoy a lot of things. Family is very important to me. Obviously married, got a son and a daughter, both in their late 20s, early 30s. Been in Frederick since the mid 80s, where I met my wife. Juanita and I have been married now for 38 years. So she's just short of sainthood for putting up with me, I think. Growing up with the kids, both my kids played ice hockey, and so I was very deeply involved in those. The sport, the community, and helped with the high school hockey league.
Awesome.
And developing a lot of those things. And now I watch them, flourish under new leadership and younger leadership, and it just kind of get a chance to reflect on some of the stuff that you did. And sadly, a lot of the players that I coached are now coaching their own kids. so there's, trying to remind yourself that you're not aging, but everyone else is. Yeah. But I love to golf. I love the outdoors. I love helping, working inside the community whenever the opportunity allows me to.
So what in the world possessed you? I hope you told your wife before you got married, I'm going to be a real estate agent. Get ready for this journey, right? Get ready for the craziness every day. But what was it that really sparked you, and how, because nobody goes to college and gets a 4-year degree in real estate, but what got you into this?
Well, actually, 2008. I mean, that's kind of what got me into it. The industry changed quite a bit. It was very disruptive to my career at that time, and it gave, life sometimes gives you the opportunities to take a pause. And so my wife said to me, well, this is, not something we're planning for, but if you could do one thing or change one thing, what would you do? And I said, well, I go get my real estate license. And so that's kind of was the stepping stone to doing that. So
everybody wants to try this sport out at some point in their lives, don't they?
Well, it's, it's funny, when some people ask me, well, what's the difference really between working in the new construction world and what I call, traditional real estate? And I told them, I said, well, traditional real estate, tends to be easier. And they looked at me and quite funny. And I said, well, in traditional real estate today, if we're not ready to settle on Tuesday, we settle on Wednesday. And I came from a world where my clients were national builders, and you would move heaven and earth, but you will never move a settlement date. So, a little bit different stress level, in terms of things that you had to do. And of course, the timelines in which you had to do it.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah, we all somehow, life changes and we get into this, and it's good. So we've been in this a long time. We have seen a lot of things, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I want to get your perspective on things like that, because, I don't want anybody just to believe everything I say and the craziness of what we see each day. I want to be able to hear some of your experiences and what your thoughts and predictions are. Let's jump into Frederick County, stuff like that. We got the whole nation and all that. You hear a lot of stuff out there, and I tell people all the time, you got to be really careful of what news sources and what data and what things you're seeing out there. If you really want some good inside stuff that I listen to, I subscribe to at least 3 or 4 podcasts that are very, very on it, very accurate. And it's not all these crazy TikTok stuff that you got to be careful about, right? So, all right. What's your favorite source of information, though, about real estate? That's a good one.
Well, I think the best source really is taking a look at the data that we have available to us specific to the markets that we're working in. I think you and I recently were talking about, again, depending on sources of information, you can be misled to having a misunderstanding of how things are, because real estate's very, very localized. And even within Frederick County, we can see different activity in different parts of the county where, we may not see as much activity in one part, where a different section of the same county could be having much more activity. And so when you start generalizing things and you start looking at it on a national level, people that are working with you and I here in these local jurisdictions that we cover, really the statistical data from somewhere in the Northeast or somewhere in the Midwest doesn't really impact what they're doing. It just in some cases clouds some of their decision making with misinformation or information that's not really pertinent to this market.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we're going to dive right into it. You got it there. We got Frederick County numbers. We got the numbers. This is the good stuff. This is what people want to know about. They want to know, how in the world do you track and tell us what the heck is going on in our market area right now and stuff. So number one, we have 709 active homes for sale today, right now. Last week, there was 689. The crazy thing, Dave, is in the last 3 to 4 weeks, it's like topped off. It's been really flat. Normally, we've seen it continually to grow, but we've been kind of predicting, and even on Your Frederick Real Estate program that I have on Saturday mornings on the update, we've been trying, Terry and I, to figure out when's the crest, when is the time of the year, what number do we predict that we're going to top off at inventory before we start going on the backside when sellers say, hey, I'm either going to delist my home, I'm part of the rage delistings, I didn't get the price I want, I didn't get the buyer I want, I didn't get $1 million, or we're going to have those that say, you know what, I'm going to wait, or life changes or something like that. Last week it was at 689, but last year 542 homes were for sale on this day. So no doubt we've been on that trend where we're up about 20% inventory year over year. Sounds like a big number, but the bottom line is not at all, because the craziest thing is values are still going up. We are nearly 3% in the plus so far this year in Frederick County, whereas almost half the country has been in a consistent decline, some places from the top, June of 2022. So we haven't had that. We've had our valleys, we've had our peaks and ups and downs. We've had a few quarters where we've seen a little bit of loss, but then we've seen some gain. But at the end of the day, this is a little bit better than last year. But the craziest thing is this, even though everything feels flat or down a little bit as far as demand and all that, but what are your thoughts about the numbers as far as 709 and last year at 542?
Well, to me, that's some of that, to be honest with you, is probably the impact of days on market. We've been dealing with, I don't want to get too far ahead on something we may talk a little bit about here in the future, but product seems to be staying, we're 2019, the average days on market were somewhere between 30 to 45 days to sell a home. And somewhere along the line between 2020 and say 2024, that little timeline there kind of sort of skewed a lot of information. And as we got into 2025, what we found was, and this information came from Lawrence Yoon, who is the lead economist for National Association of Realtors, yep, is that 2025 statistical data pretty much mirrored what we saw in 2019, which was considered more normal conditions or a normal market, obviously not knowing that the epidemic or COVID was coming, shortly thereafter. And so you get through 2020 to 2024, I feel, and my opinion, kind of represents the COVID era. And now as we get into 2025 and 2026, I think we're dealing with a more, traditional, I don't want to say normal, but more traditional market. Yep. Still a seller's market by data, if you will. Right. However, it sure looks a lot like the buyers are a lot more empowered. And that's just based on what we've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, no doubt. Coming soon, 84 homes. And that's been about where we've been hanging out for like the last month or two. The craziest thing, Dave, is how much of an impact the war was delaying the spring market by 5 weeks. And the spring market in the summer now has not, thank God, been a nothing burger, a dud, like we felt a little bit more last year. But it's actually hit us all at one time. It feels like much, much more. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that when people ask me about the real estate market, Darren, one of my answers usually is pretty simple. What's going on in your life? Because for my clients, typically, I can tell you that in all the years I've been doing this, I have never received the following phone call. Hey, Dave or Darren, I've been studying market data now for years, and I've been tracking everything. And based on all of my research and my data and AI and everything else is telling me that today is the peak of the market. I want to sell my home, or I believe that interest rates are at a place where I can go ahead and buy my home that I want. And this is what's driving my decision makings. The phone calls I get are, something's changed significantly in their life enough to stimulate the need for change, whether it's growth or aging or downsizing. In some cases, expansion of your family. In some cases, it's the reverse of that. And so that is kind of what's driving everything. And sometimes those things are somewhat isolated, if you will, from what's quote unquote going on in the market. There are higher priorities. I'm relocating, a new job, something of this nature. Parents are not doing well, and we're going to bring them into our house instead of, putting them into some sort of assisted living or care facility. And our house currently doesn't accommodate that. So we need to find something that, would be more multi-generational, where certainly that's becoming a little bit more of a buzzword in our industry. I think you're maybe seeing the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. We call them the big D's: divorce, death, debt, all the bad stuff that wrecks lives, and it's tough. That's really been about 80%. But you know what? The really good thing, Dave, is that even more recently in the last 3 to 6 months, I've had a lot more clients that are saying, hey, we realize things aren't, interest rates aren't going back to 3%. We're not waiting for this one. We need a bigger home now. We have a baby coming, or we're downsizing or something. So we're starting to see people make changes in life that aren't driven by such negativity in their lives going on. And so it's working itself out. That's the bottom line that I think that we're starting to see now.
Well, I think the other part of it is that, the transition, with the interest rates went from, during COVID were quite low. And, there were some articles written about the fact that those interest rates were kind of like the poison pill into the real estate market, because at one point, I think we had 77% of all homeowners were at or below 5% on a mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
And so their desire to jump into, a market because we creeped up to, somewhere over 7, heading towards 8.
Yep.
And for folks like you and me that have, been through around the sun a few times, these interest rates are typically more close to the, what I consider the 50-year average, if you will.
Yeah.
And that, again, going back to, the COVID era, those were kind of unrealistic, but it created an expectation that that was normal, and that the news and the media and sometimes, kind of presented it as this was abnormal, when really it was just a return to normalcy.
Right.
And now that if you stop and look at it, and I know you track it like I do, the rates have been fairly stable in the 6s,
Yep.
pretty much from the beginning of the year till now. We creeped down into the 5s for a very short time period, and now we're back up. It's not up near 7; it's still in the 6s, and all indicators are from the people that are smarter than me, at least, seem to think that we're about where where it's likely to stay all year. Again, we joke in times, but everyone gets caught up on what the Fed's doing,
Right.
with the Fed's money policy, et cetera. And again, for any of those listening, just as your gentle PSA reminder, the Fed activity has nothing to do with mortgage rates. It has everything to do with short-term rates, what banks borrow from banks. It impacts your credit card rate, it impacts your car loan, interest rate, but it does not have any impact. Bonds, on the other hand, do impact directly to your mortgage rate, and those have been tied a little bit to the war. So, and we've seen a little bit of activity back and forth on some of that, but for all in all, it's been a fairly stable year.
It has been. And that's what I've been preaching, is that, man, this is actually nice. This is good. There's nothing crazy going on. There may be in the world events and other things like that, but as far as the real estate market where we're at, this is actually really healthy. The frozen market, we're thawing out quite a bit, and it's starting to get better and better. And now, as you know, we just had legislation passed through in our country with new changes that are going to be coming up into next year. I've already had clients ask me about it with different changes that are going to be good. So we're not going to take our time to hit all those and talk about those now. We're going to get back into some of the data points and things like that. That's really good. So resale homes, Dave, 331 average time, 42 days on the market of those. And the craziest thing is the average resale single family homes right now, 726,000. Condos and townhouses, 250 of them for sale, 38 days in the market, 437 is the average and median price pretty much right now. New construction, 100 up your alley, 128 brand new homes are for sale out there, 87 single family homes. This is the craziest thing. The average brand new build, 801.
Not surprising. People need to understand how that, that business is kind of unique. First of all, it all starts with land acquisition cost, and that drives everything. When you look at the lending world, the lending will only loan 75% of the total value of the net product. So if land represents 25% and you pay a pretty good penny for the land, you're already set, the housing, the house value, if you will. And then that ties directly into what the builder wants to build, because it's all really about square footage for them. I guess the latest buzzword is affordable housing.
Yeah.
As I call that, is the oxymoron, because there's no such thing. And not to get too political, but the things that drive the cost of the home up are not really anything to do with the brick and mortar part of it. It's not a whole lot to do with the labor. And, the one thing that's not changed in the constant world since 2008 and even through COVID is land costs have not moved backwards at all.
Yeah.
They've stayed steady. They continue to increase. Land is very challenging. It's hard to get building lots. And so builders will pay a premium, for something that they can build on. And so, the days where the builder used to take on the land development aspect of it are history. And that kind of ended at the end of really the 80s, if you will, or the end of 70s and 80s. And since then, they wanted, how would you say, push off risk. And so they push it to the developer. And so the developer has to go do the hand-to-hand combat with the local jurisdictions to get everything approved and go through the process of, I call it, getting everything approved through various means of extortion for land, for school, land for parks, and all the things. And those costs get passed on to the homeowner. So the cost of new construction, there's nothing that is there that's just a time savings for them. And people want a smaller house, but that drives up the square foot price. And it becomes incredibly challenging to make that affordable.
Right.
I mean, again, old guy here, but I remember when Michael Sponseller built houses in Lake Linganore and Pinehurst and sold them for $70,000 on, maybe 1/8 of an acre lots. And, you probably are going to spend $70,000 in fees before you before you ever touch the shovel touches the soil to begin to build, a new house today. So when people ask, why are things so expensive and these daggone bad builders are overcharging, it's, they're just basically absorbing all the cost to build, and they're putting it into the cost of the product.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's the key thing to think about. So looking at more data under contracts, we have 525 homes under contract right now. Sold, let's talk about that. Last 30 days, 354. That came up just a tiny bit, but in general, we got a lot on the way. It seems like still 324 resale homes at average price $537. And the big one with new builds, this is what's amazing. 30 in the last 30 days. So in Frederick County, it was down a little bit and then it was up higher a little bit, but the average is this, 30. So we see one brand new house settle every single day, pretty much in Frederick County. So 365 to 400 brand new homes is what settles for brand new. And then outside of that, we have about 2,500 to 3,000 homes in Frederick County that settle per year. So put that in a little bit of perspective here. This is the craziest part of it. A single family home in Frederick County now, the average price, brand new build, this doesn't take into account of just communities, but also those that are on 5-acre lots and bigger homes like that. But $956, 18, that's the price. We're going to be at $1 million before you know. We're in Montgomery County already. Townhouses, 18 of them this last month at 538. That broke a high. The last record was 529. So we are, like you said, we are starting to see these numbers continue to climb up, even if it's only 2 or 3%, which is the average per year. List to sold price ratio, this is what gets me, 99%. But there's another number, Dave, I wanted to bring to your attention that I wanted to get your input on. 47%. This is the market. We're going to talk about prices and missing it and expectations and all these things after we do a commercial break. But before we hit a commercial break, 40% of all sellers have reduced their price within the last being on the market 30 days or more. That is insane because that number was like 2% during COVID. It was as high as over 50%, but it's still a little bit elevated. Why in the world is this number so high?
Well, I think, again, going back to 20 through 24, people saw rapid appreciation values. And in some cases, things that didn't make a lot of sense just because of the desperation that some of the buyers had during a time when there was very, very limited inventory. Now we have, much more inventory. So one of the biggest challenges that I've seen as we go through into this market, and certainly not my observation, but others as well. We have expectations of the seller who thinks that we're still in the COVID era and that prices are still going up by the hour. And then you have buyers who don't see it quite that way. And they immediately, no matter where your price is at, automatically assume that you're overpriced. And what happens is, because again, going back to COVID era, if you went through the weekend and didn't sell your home, chances are the seller wanted to fire you for being a terrible agent. And so now, people are beginning to wonder why my house hasn't sold in 30 days. And, what I continue to remind my clients is the market price will be set by the buyers. It's not set by, anyone else. It'll be validated by the appraisal people. But at the end of the day, it's going to be set by the person who's willing to write a check for your house. And so we got people that, let's face it, I mean, to speak candidly, we've got some listing agents that listen more to the seller than provide a good counsel and guidance. So they start out a little bit high and then, have to work their way down to where the price point, is. Some cases, quite frankly, I just had a listing in Sykesville where even though we were the highest priced house in the neighborhood, we were the lowest price by square foot. And we still had to go through a couple of price repositions before we, were able to go under contract.
Yeah, and that's happened, and I've had a few of those in the 800,000 and above range where we missed it by $10 on paper. It looked fine. In the reality of a buyer's expectation of what they're willing to do in that moment for the buyer that wants your home, that could be very different. And that's the X factor that you and I, Dave, we could never predict that for sellers. It's one of those crapshoots where we see what happens here a little bit, but there are some strategies that can curb those ideas and making sure that you're not part of that 47% where you're upset about things. All right, let's take a commercial break here. When we get back, Dave, we're going to talk about how's the market from your perspective and what buyers or sellers are telling you along those lines as well. So here's our sponsors. Thanks so much.
Hi there. I'm Brianne Paul, an attorney with Community Title Network, the most trusted title partner for real estate professionals, buyers, and sellers. Our experienced attorneys, settlement agents, and processing staff put you at ease whether your closing involves residential real estate, commercial real estate, or other real estate matters in between. We work with the most respected title underwriters in the region to make sure your rights are protected and all title problems are resolved quickly. Experience close to home with our many locations, serving Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, Washington, D.C., and Ohio, as well as remote signing options available. Reliable, efficient, top-notch service. That's Community Title Network. How can we help you today? Find us online at www.communitytn.com or call us at 301-304-6620.
Life doesn't always go as planned, but with Connie Phillips Insurance, you'll be ready for whatever comes your way. As an independent agent, CPI shops multiple carriers to find the right coverage at the right price. Auto, home, life, or business, we got you covered with personal service you can trust. Call Connie Phillips Insurance today at 301-662-5717. Remember, advising what's in your best interest, not just selling policies.
All right, we're back. I am Darren Ahearn with RE/MAX Results, and I have with me David Pard, one of my good friends, colleagues, agent, and we're talking shop about real estate. Here's the biggest question everybody asks. I love it. Don't you just love it? Over decades, you hear the same thing over and over again. How's the market?
And my answer is, as to every real estate question that you could ever ask and never be wrong, it depends. And, it depends on what's going on in your life, and it depends on where we're talking about. It depends on, what your timeline is. And, all these factors come into play as to, what the answer to that is. And so, we don't have to deal with, do I need to wait, in time? But however, that's still a mindset out there. And right now with what I call the pivot in the market where we're, given a lot more rights back to the buyers than what we've seen in years past when, again, back to COVID era, their buyers pretty much forfeited most of, what they were entitled to have as a, means of, inspecting a home and things of that nature. We're seeing inspections, we're seeing home sale contingencies, we're seeing a lot of things that, were not necessarily normal, but were not abnormal. And now they're back into play. So what's going on in the market, really, I tell people is, people are moving, people are buying and selling homes. Interest rates are pretty stable. And, what's your situation? What's your need? And then we figure out what the best strategy is to move forward for them. Again, where it's at, well, I find it very interesting, and I don't know what your take is on this, but I'm running into a number of clients who are looking at condos, and condos is like an entirely different market in Frederick County.
Oh yeah.
It's like a different planet. It doesn't really trade as sort of like what it does with townhouses and single families. And again, typically from what I've seen in many other markets, condos can be attractive to some of the younger clientele coming into the home ownership market. But here in Frederick, tends to be more on the other end of the downsizing, someone on the senior end of the timeline, looking for single floor living, in some cases elevator, and things, like that. So, that market's a little bit different and certainly operates on its own timeline. Single family townhouses, it really, again, timing's everything. I've got a number of listings on the market. For one reason or another, we missed the proverbial spring market by about 30 days. And I think it's had some impact on our ability to get under contract, but we're beginning. Since the 4th of July weekend, I've noticed that showings are really starting to pick up again.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's the craziest thing. And people would say, well, did interest rates come down and do that? No, it's been flat. Well, have prices come down that's done that? No, values are actually going up. It's only costing more money for housing right now. And so it's kind of like the tale of two cities, the tale of two transactions. And so when people ask me as well, how's the market? That's been my thing, is I know what they're thinking. Whether you're a seller or a buyer, they want to know two things. Is it good or is it bad? Or is it neutral? Maybe a third, right? And like you said, it all depends on your life. Let's first talk about, the seller side of it. So I say to sellers, it's whatever, or buyers, it's whatever you want it to be. The market is going to be determined by what your expectations and how you want to navigate through this. Now, my job is to give you the options and explain to you the trend of the market as far as your specific home, what's selling. And of course, they are thinking, well, it must be great. My Zillow's estimate says it's $1 million. Well, Zillow's not buying your house. Neither is Remax, neither is Homes.com, neither is anybody else, like you said earlier. And so I tell sellers, look, if the market can be great or bad for you as a seller, and they're like, they look at you, and I say, hey, look, if you, the number one thing is you got to price your house right. If you miss this by $10, you are going to be so upset. And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to be able to hone right on in a very tight bracket about how to do that. And I know we both have different procedures and we look at all the data and different things like that. But at the end of the day, the trend is our friend as well. And the X factor, David, you and I don't have is we don't know how many buyers want what you have in this given moment right now. That is something no one can predict, because what it was last week, if you put your home into the market, and what it is next week or a month or further down the road from that time frame, no one can predict none of that kind of stuff, But as a whole, we know things have picked up quite a bit. So the first thing I like to say, to the sellers on that note is, price is everything. Price. If you don't get that right now, that works in conjunction with condition. So it's great if you price your house at market or a little aggressive, because why? You get a fist fight in the front yard. Tale of two stories. I have a place right now down in Mount Airy, beautiful place, 2 in-law suites, rancher, first level living, all brick, gorgeous, 3-acre lot, wonderful area, private, the whole 9 yards. Everything is great about it. I've had 10 showings, 3 at an open house, and plus 10 more. And I know we're pretty close, but the market keeps saying, no, thank you. Whereas I just listed a home here recently, a townhouse, like you said, in that 400,000 type range, right here in Ballinger Creek, no city taxes, nice neighborhood, schools are pretty decent there too, blah, blah, blah. You go through all that stuff. And the seller was wise enough that we're like, you know what? I want to have a fist fight in the front yard, because you showed me I want to get the most money, best terms, conditions. We've had 37 showings in 4 days and got 7 offers. And one of the offers is $36,000 above the asking price. Somebody says, wow, they would have looked like they were giving the house away. No, they weren't. And now, not only did they get $36,000, and it's going to be pretty much guaranteed, because why? The buyer, they threw out the appraisal. There's no appraisal contingency. They threw out the home inspection. They threw everything out. It's a conventional loan, not quite cash. And that's the winner. That's the best. And my seller today said to me, this is absolutely amazing. Great for him if he overpriced the house and said, no, I want to be $30,000 higher. We would definitely not have had the results we've had. In fact, if anything, he already knew he would have been chasing the market down, and its settlement would have probably got $10,000 or $20,000 less, because he didn't listen to the market and what's happening. So that's the success side of it. And then for the sellers, there's a lot of that are in tune with the condition and other things like that. And on the buyer side, market's great. If you got good credit and money, man, you don't have a house to sell contingency, you're in a great position. But if you have rough credit, you don't have any money saved up, you got $1,000 to your name, and your expectations are, I want a $700,000 house for $500,000, I'm going to put low ball offers in, you are going to absolutely hate real estate market right now or any time like that. So it all depends on expectations and things like that. So I know I've shared a lot in that. What are your thoughts on that with buyers and sellers, and what do you see them thinking and saying as you work with them right now in this market?
Well, I think the key word out of a lot of the words that you shared there is really expectations. And I was talking to a very good friend of mine, colleague, the other day, and I indicated that expectations are everything. And that's whether you're dealing with a buyer or a seller, and understanding that you need to make sure that we have clear, first of all, you need to have a clear expectation of what they're expecting, what they're looking for. Your job as an agent is to make sure you define the expectations of what they can expect. I use the GPS analogy quite a bit, and I tell people that there's a lot of different, with the GPS, it gives you options on how to get to where you're going. You just get there differently, longer, shorter, toll roads, different things, and finding which way is best for you, and then setting the journey for that. I also remind them, if you're selling your home, that selling your home is a lot like dating, and that the longer you're on the market, people tend to ask what's wrong with you, and so as a result, a lot of times the motivation of a particular client's needs, is going to dictate really to some extent our go-to-market strategy. So, for example, with a listing where someone's relocating, they are going to be leaving town, need to get kids enrolled in school into a new area, and so they're very anxious to close the chapter here. We're more likely to want to go to the market with a very aggressive pricing strategy, similar to what you described in your townhouse. You've got someone who's thinks they're not in a hurry, they're not sure where maybe we don't see eye to eye on going the go to market price. I don't like to go to market with a bad price, because you have to defend it to somebody, either to an appraiser or to other people. But I tell them very quickly, the market will speak to us depending on number of showings, how many people come to the open house, and we need to be prepared to listen to what the market tells us and prepare to act accordingly. Price repositions are not a bad thing when they're done properly and they're done with proper strategy. When one of the things in talking to a seller about is, who is our buyer? Who is going to be the buyer for our house? So if you have a house that needs a lot of renovation work, chances are, I hate to say it, but in today's environment with HGTV creating some very false expectations for people, there's not a lot of folks that are looking to take on projects and willing to do all the work that it takes to take something and make it their own and bring it up to current updates. So that person is probably going to be looking, quite frankly, towards your new construction, because that's kind of what they're looking for. They want something brand new, want everything new, everything works. Want to walk in, put my stuff away, call DoorDash, and turn on Netflix. And that's okay. That's a client. I mean, I had a young couple, showed them a bunch of different stuff downtown that was renovated. It was gorgeous. The wife wanted to be closer to the downtown, and the husband wanted something newer that hadn't been quote unquote used, if you will. And of course, eventually they ended up buying new construction, out in the western part of Frederick City. So expectations are everything, because when they're out of alignment, you can be out of alignment with your client. You can be, it's a very stressful, adventure or journey, if you will, in trying to either buy or sell real estate. And you're dealing with a lot of emotions, and anxiety is very, very high, and everyone handles that a little bit differently. And so trying to be the calmest person in the room even when it gets a little bit stormy, can be challenging. So, again, being able to gain their trust, if you will, by giving good counsel, I think, helps with that. Buyers, on the other hand, I hate to say it, but today one of the biggest problems I see with buyers is indecision. I mean, I had a client, someone showed one of my listings. Sadly, I had to chase down some feedback, got them on the phone, and they told me, oh, they loved it. It's great. It checked, pretty much all their boxes, but it's the first house they looked at. And I said, well, so if it checks all their boxes, they're just one of the lucky ones. Most everyone, sometimes it takes 20 houses to find that one.
Right.
So I said, hey, did you share with them that, this is not as unusual. It's not, very usual to find a house that checks all your boxes. But if it does, why are we still looking?
Exactly.
And why don't we prepare an offer on this house? Because there's no guarantee. Two things. Number one, that we're going to find one better. And number two, by the time we circle back to this one could be gone.
Oh, yeah.
And I had some clients down in Howard County shopping in a very high price range in excess of $2 million. We were looking at a lot of product that was in office exclusive category, so it wasn't on the market. You really had an opportunity to write a private offer, if you will, without a lot of competition. And we looked at this first house 5 times, and they just couldn't pull the trigger. And then it went into coming soon, and then it went to the market, and then it was gone like within just a day or two. And they were very upset that the agent that had showed it to us had the audacity to put it on the market and sell it. And I'm like, well, their allegiance is to their seller, not to you. And they gave you a shot at the title. You had 5 peaks.
Wow.
And we ended up buying a beautiful home, and we looked at so many. But at the end of the day, I think if you ask them privately today, they still have some buyer remorse of not picking their first house. But the only reason why they didn't, it was the first house.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's crazy with expectations. I mean, we manage them all day long, and having that plan is what's so important. And I think with expectations, the market, there's so many buyers, like you said, that are like, oh, I can think on this. I can sleep on this. I heard, things are changing, and they have all these preconceived ideas. And so, like you said, I couldn't believe how many agents, not just buyers, but how many agents, they were surprised today when they said, oh my, you got to be kidding me. I thought you only would maybe have 1 offer. You have 7 offers. And so here they are going back to their, and so you've got 6 buyers right now today that wanted this townhouse that I had listed. And all of a sudden they're thinking, well, how did this happen? The news isn't telling us that this feels like COVID right now again. And so now they're confused even more, right? Because now they're thinking, oh, I thought that I'd be the only offer. I thought that, and the bottom line is, it's like, no, that's not the case all the time. You got to really pay attention to what's going on with the market. And so it's crazy. Even this, David, in these offers, one of them was below the asking price. You can't make this up. A couple of them were asking for closing cost concessions. And my seller just laughed, and he thought, this is crazy. I can't believe that these buyers and these agents, and they would think like the buyers would want this. And I said, look, they probably needed this, but they were just, hey, you never know till you take your shot at it. But it does come down to expectations. And this is a really big thing. One of the things I listened to in a podcast recently, Dave, is they were talking about, and I don't know if you feel this, that buyers and sellers expectations. Buyers want $1 million for their home when it's worth 700. Sellers, and then buyers, they want a house that's $1 million for $5. And it feels like the divide right now is greater almost than it's ever been in our career. And managing that and bringing buyers and sellers together is really something that can be pretty challenging. One of the biggest things, Dave, I wanted to ask you about this is I hear so many times from the title companies, Brian over at Community Title and the lenders saying, we have never seen this entitlement is really out of control. And the biggest thing for sellers right now, I tell them is, man, home inspection, buyers are walking away at record pace over the dumbest things ever because they can, and this is what they think. And if they're going to pay top dollar for your house, that thing better be perfect in their mind, or they're walking out. And if you're not willing to make repairs or concessions, they're walking away. The negotiating strategies have changed radically just in the last year. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, key point is that I like to try to anticipate, what's going to happen, what can happen, and be prepared for those. Try to prepare your client as best you can. Interesting, when you have a buy-sell situation where your client's both a buyer or seller today, soon to be a buyer, when they're we got their buyer hat on, you remind them that just remember, this is the same hat that someone's going to be coming into your house as when you're the seller, asking for all of the same things. So as long as you're comfortable asking for it here, I don't want to hear you be upset about when people ask the same of you.
How dare they?
Yeah. So, and sometimes that helps. And again, this is about setting, realistic expectations. But one of the things that, Darren, that I have a little bit of an advantage of is that, number one, I haven't found a house yet that, no matter what it is, whether it be structural, whatever, a crumbling foundation, everything can be fixed.
Yes.
Okay. Everything can be fixed. There's no reason to walk away except for, trying to determine how much is it going to cost to fix it and who's paying. And, now you may not agree on those things, but, the people that walk away from, like you said, repairs that, make, whatever. So what I like to do is, if I do know that we, have something like, so for instance, flooring is a big issue, right? Sometimes, something that's worn a few years that, it's kind of borderline as to whether, someone, may want to replace it. What, to me, what I have found is that, buyers take a $5,000 repair, and in their minds, it's $25,000, and they beat you up, and they beat you up for $25,000 in your price or some sort of concession. So what I do to circumvent that is I just go out and get quotes for the things that I anticipate. And, we don't necessarily publish them, but if they come back and say, hey, we have some concerns with the flooring. Oh, awesome. We've taken the liberty of going ahead and prepared. And when we do it, we don't do the low end, and we certainly don't do the top end, but we'll try to pick something that's fair and middle, average, if you will. LVP type products come to mind a lot. And so, I can say, hey, look, this company here would be willing to provide you, flooring at this quality for this price. And we're happy to discuss this number, not, your number, because, this is what it's going to cost if the flooring and truly is an issue. And you can work your way. The other thing I deal with my clients is, and this could open up another 1 hour session on, not picking on an industry, but as home inspectors can play a big role in how bumpy or smooth a transaction can be. But the thing is I just remind them is that we look at every single item on a home inspection report individually and not the collective group of all of them. We'll break them down. If there's electrical issues, let's look at this. Okay, let's get an electrician in. These seem to be, fair requests. Let's get those fixed. Plumbing, same way. HVAC, we break down the trades. And I tell them, I say, look, you don't have to fix them for this person, but we got to tell the next person that these problems exist.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance they're going to want you to fix them too.
Right. It's not going to go away.
You can run, but you can't hide, and so, kicking the can down the road is a great strategy, but it's very flawed, if you will. And so far, my clients have very fair expectations. When they can't afford to do it, then we start looking at settlement, seller concessions and doing things at settlement so that, it may come out of their proceeds as opposed to upfront pocket cost. And that's, again, setting expectations, saying, hey, look, I'm not saying that you need to replace your carpet, but this could come up as an issue. Just want you to prepare. And so I think we should get a quote to replace it just to have.
Yeah.
And, so that when it does, and if it does raises itself as a concern, that, we can tackle it at a fair and reasonable, and we're in control, if you will, of the number, as opposed to, defensive mode of trying to negotiate down from a, $5,000 repair from a $25,000 request.
I think one of the biggest things I have found with the expectations right now, especially home inspections, is I've tried to explain to buyers that a home inspection is for you to learn about the house, how it works. And we're looking for problems, safety issues, number one, big stuff that would scream, run, don't buy this. This is going to be a money pit. This is going to be really bad. But 9 out of 10 times that's not the case. But I'm so amazed how many times that, buyers really think the home inspection is designed to be able to have me to negotiate and bring a house up to a brand new conditional status. We expect the seller to do every little thing we want. For instance, things that are good working order condition, HVAC system. Yeah, it's 12 years old. Oh, it's going to break any minute. I want a brand new one. No, that's not the purpose of a home inspection. It's so you learn about it, you understand it, and you can prepare for it. But that's the thing that amazes me of how many buyers expect, I want the seller to bring it to brand new status, but I'm only going to pay $500,000 for it. And I'm like, no, if you want a brand new house, let's go buy a brand new house. I just did the numbers. They're $800,000. Let's go spend $300,000 more for the expectation of what you want. That can be a little bit challenging and stuff like that. So, all right, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to thank our sponsors, and Dave and I are going to come right back. Dave, the big thing I'm going to ask you is this, and if anybody wants to chime in, get your questions in. We're going to answer those. Craziest thing, toughest experience. What's the easiest experience? What are some of the things like that with real estate? And if you could change one thing in real estate, what would it be? And what are future market predictions?
Sponsored by Maryland Lottery. Tons of ways to win. Hot scratch-offs like big money where a $5 ticket could net you $50,000 or the $2 Monopoly ticket with a top prize of $10,000. Go to mdlottery.com for all the details. Plus, you can download the app and scan your tickets to see if you're a winner. Must be 18 to play. Please play responsibly. Sponsored by Lawn Squad. Quick and easy quote, and you can be on your way to having the best lawn in the neighborhood. Watch the progress as Brian from Lawn Squad brings Danny's lawn back to life. Visit lawnsquad.com.
All right, we are back for your weekly dose of real estate updates. I'm with David Pard. We've been talking lots of different ideas and things about real estate, Frederick County, the numbers and all that. We've been talking about the market conditions, expectations with buyers and sellers, and tips and tricks and things like that, and things to think about. The biggest thing, we got about 5 or 6 minutes. What's the craziest thing you think about real estate?
Craziest thing I've experienced, or the craziest thing I see in the industry?
All of it.
So the deal that you and I did on Bassford Road was a byproduct of probably, you weren't involved in the front part of that transaction, but we were 3 days from settlement, and I represented the sellers, of course, and the buyers on that transaction terminated the deal outside of the boundaries of the contract by deciding to have a change in their marital status 3 days before settlement.
That's not good.
And so, of course, we were under contract, pending, settlement of this home on their next home, which they lost. And as an agent, I went from hero to zero pretty quickly, as you can imagine. But which is pretty typical with at least my experiences, and I'm sure probably yours as well. You end up in the perfect home. It's not always the way that we designed. They ended up finding the most perfect home in the area we started looking at, but had abandoned due to lack of inventory. Perfect for what they needed. He had too many trees in Bassford. This house had no trees, and they could walk to. She was a school teacher, so she could walk the kids to the school that they were going to, and so that's pretty wild. We see a lot of different things in transactions, of course, and probably some of them are not appropriate for this broadcast, but generally speaking, I mean, people. I had a guy. Again, I was listing agent, and the seller or the buyer decided to change their jobs like 2 days before settlement, but kind of forgot to tell the lender. And so when they called to verify employment, the answer was no bueno.
That's not good.
No, that was a little bit of a fire drill. So, we had to, again, kind of circle the wagons and get through that.
If you could see one big thing change in real estate, what would it be as an agent?
Well, I still think it's a relationship-driven industry, in spite of the fact that people are trying to use technology to, navigate through it. I mean, I think that we still probably haven't even scratched the surface of what AI is going to do. But it does certainly empowers your clients to have a little bit more information than they might have. The key thing is going to be able to make sure you can establish your credibility and understand that, what AI may tell them might be the thing to do, may or may not work for them. And, again, it's still about being the client's trusted advisor. I don't see that changing in my remaining part of my career. I could be wrong, but I do believe this is a relationship-driven business, and this is all about building relationships that last, beyond the sale of a home.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing in our industry is I think I love the fact that Maryland came out with all the steps and all the things in great detail of what we do as agents. Whether it's a buyer or seller, they don't realize there's 50 hours at least wrapped up in this or more, lots of money that we spend. It's an incredible amount. This is one of the most expensive sandboxes you can ever play in. And there's a lot of hats we have to wear. There's a lot we have to know with ethics and legal stuff and contracts and all that. And I think that one of the biggest things is understanding, how much work it really does take and the complexities that have grown with each and every transaction. I mean, this has just gotten to be daunting to where I have heard agents, and I don't know if you've thought this isn't even fun anymore. This is absolutely out of control. It's not worth the money. The average real estate agent makes $57,000 a year. You know that?
Well, I did know that, but here's the other part of it. What people don't understand is that, unless we land the plane, we don't get paid. Exactly. So it doesn't matter, how much time we vest or how much money we've got vested. At the end of the day, the payday doesn't happen until we successfully complete, the journey. And so sometimes those journeys end up empty.
Yep. Where do you think future predictions? Where do you think real estate's going for the rest of this year into 2027?
I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of change. The things that, tend to be a little bit disruptive, I think, are somewhat stable. I mean, world events, no one has any control over those. In this case, we do have some midterm elections coming up towards the latter part of the year. The party in power is going to want to maintain a positive environment for the economy in order to maintain, the position they currently hold. Whether they can accomplish that or not is to be seen. On the other hand, I don't see anything. I mean, there's nothing that's going to be like a real industry disruptor. I think the overall optimism of the economy and the people is that it's moving in a positive direction, and as long as they can get through the day-to-day challenges. I'd love to see beef come down a little bit myself. Yes. Gas could still come down a little bit, but we are actually below pre-war prices today.
Yeah.
So not a lot of being said about that, but that's kind of where we are. But I think that the real estate thing is that we do have some people getting older, and they're going to, again, going back and looking at the average age of the seller is in the 60s.
Yep.
And so you're seeing that person downsize, for one reason or another. And so, the first-time home buyer average age is up to almost 40.
Yep.
So, and back to the multi-generational conversation we had where it takes the money from the boomer, in conjunction with, some of the, secondary, the needs of the care that can be provided by, the younger groups to be able to live, and if they can find a way to culturally live under the same roof. Some cultures, it's pretty normal for that.
Right.
Some cultures, not so much. And so those challenges will work themselves out.
Yeah. I think it's going to be fantastic, amazing. It's already great. There's no big Thank God, nothing crashing. We're not experiencing like we did 2008, 9, and 10. Some people would claim that all it takes is one domino that could possibly happen within the economy and all that stuff like that. But the bottom line is people don't want to live in their car, homeless under the bridge, and with, Aunt Sally or this, that, or whatever. The American dream is still alive. People want to have their own place, and it is awesome. So, hey, thank you guys so much for turning into your weekly dose of real estate here on Everything Frederick Live. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you again like, subscribe, send us to others. We want to know what your questions, cares, thoughts, and concerns are, because this program is all about you. So we'll be hitting more tips and tricks and latest ideas coming up each and every single week right here on Monday nights at 7 o'clock. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Darren Ahearn with Remax Results, and I've had the pleasure of having Mr.
Dave Park, Sampson Properties.
Yeah. So thanks so much. We'll see you on the fun side of the island. Happy buying and selling. Take care now.
Thanks for joining Darren Ahearn on your real estate update. For more smart local real estate insight, market trends, and practical advice for buyers, sellers, and homeowners, follow and subscribe to stay one step ahead.
This episode is a proud production of the Everything Frederick Live Podcast Network, your home for Frederick's best podcasts, streaming daily on YouTube.